You're listening to Errol Parker and Clancy Overall, editors of the Batuta Advocate on Desert Rock FM. Welcome back to the Batuta Advocate radio show, recording live here in the Old City District, downtown Batuta, Budgie Smuggler Studios. You're joined by myself, Clancy Overall, and of course, Errol Parker. How are you, Errol?
Always good, mate. Good to be here. Good weather up here now.
Yep, and we've beaten COVID, so that's all over. That's all over. But, you know, we're now seeing the fruits of a year spent locked indoors. As we said last week, a lot of people lost a lot during the pandemic, and a lot of people found new avenues to apply their, their crafts, and people found new businesses, people decentralised, and we saw a lot of silver linings to the whole thing. One silver lining, I would say, that we have seen is the Carvanisance of Claudia Karvan, who joins us here today on the Batuta Advocate podcast. Thank you for joining us, Claudia.
Oh, look, lovely to be here. Beautiful town.
Yeah, no, it's a good time of the year to be here. It's not too hot.
Not too dusty.
Yeah, no.
Nice and green, actually, outside. But, Claudia, now you've been greenlit for a second season of Bump, and you are, once again, the show that you were involved in is rating. I don't know if they call it rating on streaming services, but you are number one, really, in the country right now.
Yeah, apparently record-breaking, for Stan. So, hey, can't beat that, can you? Instant gratification.
Yeah, you can't. Well, it is like that nowadays, isn't it? You don't have to wait for the quarterly ratings or anything like that. It's just day one.
That's
you'll get
right.
a phone call from the...
Well, yeah, and I suppose on those streaming platforms and stuff, they aren't trying to give those numbers to advertisers. I mean, there are people who are paying good money to watch it, and that they're getting what they want.
Yeah, and we don't have to wait, week on, week out for the episodes to drop. They just dumped them all on New Year's Day when everyone had a lovely hangover and it was lovely wet weather and people were over COVID, and I think it was a perfect storm for us. People sat around and binged the hell out of it, which is, the whole team were extremely gratified.
Were you in the background as well on...
Secret Life of Us?
Yeah, Secret Life of Us.
No, I was not. I was an employee and very new to television and very scared of the commitment because I was a bit of a film snob. I really only did feature films and stuff. And John Edwards and Amanda Higgs and Judy McCrossan offered me the role of Alex, and I had no idea how TV worked. And I was like, yeah, look, I'll do the first 4 episodes, and if I'm happy, I'll stay on. And they just took a punt on me, and of course I stayed on for 2.5 series. And back then it was like 22 episode series, and they were hour-long episodes where the bump is like 30 minutes.
And it doesn't feel rushed either. That's the thing. I mean, maybe it's just the consumer, our mindset has changed, but Bump feels like you get everything in each episode. It's crazy to think that we would watch sometimes longer than an hour. Of an evening, and sometimes more than one episode if we were, if we had the box set.
Yeah, I think we tried to pack it in. We tried to make sure there was no fat, and I think there's a good amount of layers in there. So hopefully they're satisfying half hours.
So just for people like Clancy, can you describe the difference between being a show creator and, say, a writer? Like, what does the creator do?
That is a very good question. So, for instance, on Love My Way, I shared the creator credit with Jacqueline Persky and John Edwards, so that meant we were the core initial team. I initially came up with the idea of let's explore being in your 30s in Sydney, because I'd just done Secret Life of Us 20s in Melbourne, so that was I'm so incredibly original. That was a brilliant idea, not. So that's why you get that title, because you are there from the beginning to populate the world, invent the characters, invent the tone, put the team together. But for Dr. Doctor, I was credited as a creator as well with Tony McNamara, the amazing Tony McNamara, who created The Great, which is on Stan at the moment and one of the best TV series. He's a bloody genius. And again, it's how early you are on a project. You might come onto a project and it's being described on, a one-pager, for instance. So when you populate the world, invent the characters and the arcs, then that's how you inherit that title. But for instance, on this one, Kelsey Munro, it was her original idea. She knew of some parents who a similar thing had happened, not a cryptic pregnancy, but a teen pregnancy. And she was on maternity leave for the second time, and she was like, what's a great way to sort of contextualize the shock of motherhood. And she thought, yeah, I'll do it to a 16-year-old and, that type of 16-year-old and blindside her. So it was a good framework. And then I came on very early and contributed a whole lot of other layers to the production. So therefore, I said to John, you ask Kelsey if she wants to give me a creator credit because, it is her original idea, and she, was very keen to do that. So does that answer the question?
Yeah,
it's a bit of a long answer, wasn't it?
So basically, you take this idea that you create and you handball it to a bunch of people in a room who just flesh it all out.
That's right. Well, we all sit in the room together and, we have contributors coming and going. On Bump, we had a fairly consistent core group of Stephen Arriagada, Jess Tuckwell, who wrote 3 of the episodes, Matilda Gupta, who wrote episode 5, and Tim Lee, who wrote 2 episodes. So they were in the room from the outset. And yes, we have a big whiteboard and we just basically bring in our diaries and share our most, private, embarrassing stories and then sort of convert them into something unrecognisable.
Right. The thing I found with Bump is it hits a lot of nostalgia as well as exploring new things on the Australian television kind of world. It explores obviously the idea of a cryptic pregnancy, which is real, and we've all heard a story, and also teen pregnancy. But you also get a throwback to the kind of that effortless kind of multicultural, Australia, which we saw in Heartbreak High and we used to see back in the day, Heartbreak Kid. And there's a little bit of Alabrandy about this as well. Did you find it's resonating in that way with some people?
Oh, yeah, we've got a lot of attention for that and a lot of kudos, which is great. I mean, that's pretty much one of the main questions I get asked is, the diversity is so great. But there is a fantastic article on Arts Hub, which is titled Diversity is a White Word. Yeah. And so, I don't know, I try not to use the D word. I just think, you've just got to reflect what Australia really is and the demographic of Australia. And there's sort of no excuse to not do that anymore. I think we've sort of been quite lazy or stuck in our ways or Anglo-centric or whatever it is. But it was Nakia Louie, actually. I was on a panel with her at Giant Dwarf and she sort of challenged me and I was like, oh, God, I think I'm getting a bit apathetic in that space. So Kirsty McGregor, who is the casting agent, it's very, very big on her agenda as well. And it's just exciting to see new faces and create new careers like Ioane Saula, the Samoan boy. Like, he's never acted before. Yeah. He's 18 yeyears old. He was on his way to being a rugby star and he put down an audition and he just kicked it out of the park. And he's brilliant.
Yeah, but it's representative more so than diversity because it's, it's telling obviously a story of there's suburbs like that in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane. And we haven't actually seen that of late. And I feel like that's been well portrayed. Do you see similarities between this kind of story and was it ever on your mind making this show, you grew up in a kind of bohemian, kind of eccentric, multicultural kind of, upbringing in Sydney, King's Cross, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Victoria Street.
Are you channeling any of that, any of your, your youth?
Look, I think all contributors in the room, we all bring our lives to the show. So, you can't help but even unconsciously, the way you might solve problems or your general sort of philosophies or whatever, your values, they sort of get absorbed in the way you want to tell a story. So, I mean, that was my childhood and, it's pretty unique.
Yeah. Did you fall into acting? Was that a result of your surroundings? Like we're going back well before Bump here, but
I was 10. Yeah. Well, my parents were originally in the film industry. They went over to Cannes Film Festival and represented The Singer and the Dancer, actually an Armstrong short film, and Bert Dealing's Pure Shit, and they were part of Film News magazine, and all their friends were in the film industry. But then they started this nightclub in King's Cross. So it was frequented by lots of film people, and I was a 10-year-old kid around, so that's generally what you do. You grab the nearest kid if you need a kid in a role, and that was me. I had no aspirations to be an actor, and my mother certainly didn't on my behalf either. She was not a stage mum by any stretch of the imagination.
That might be why you stuck with it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Do you know what you would be doing if you weren't doing this?
Oh, that's a good question. I find medicine fascinating. Yeah, but that's probably just romantic vision of it.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have. Yeah, well, that's
right. You could be
right.
a TV doctor.
Yeah, well, I was. I was a surgeon on Secret Life of Us, and I did start really believing that I probably could cut my friends open successfully.
Just waiting for that heart attack in a restaurant. Just clear the way. And when did you, I mean, you've been part of this kind of alumni, this class of Secret Life of Us, and, you know, and everyone, almost all of them, and some of the people you kind of working with in your, you know, your early TV shows that you worked on have all gone their own ways and done amazing things. Are there any reunions? You know, do you do the big Mendelsohn, Mailman kind of catch-ups? Because it's almost like a lot of people launched from the same place as you did.
Yeah, I mean, Mailman and I sit on the board of Screen Australia together, so that's a reunion, you know. Every couple of months we go through the board papers, and she's just gold, like, honestly, bottle her blood. She's one of the most gorgeous and beautiful actresses in this country. But she lives her own life. She's got kids. She lives down the South Coast. And Mendelsohn, I get the odd sort of call from him as he's strolling down Sunset Boulevard. And he just goes, I was just thinking about you, Claude, and just wanted to thank you for, you know, that job on your little show. Love My Way, you know, because he wasn't getting a lot of work at that time. So, you know, he thinks of me every now and again.
It's nice of Ben, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, it just did you feel like it was happening when it was happening for a lot of you, you know, you youngsters? Did you feel like you guys were being part of, you know, TV history when you were in these programs?
No, not at all. I don't know. I don't think I ever sort of take that bird's eye view. And also, you know, acting careers, it's so much about perception. Like, really, you know, if you're on Secret Life of Us and you apparently got this amazing career, you're literally working 6 months of the year, and the other 6 months you're like, I'm out of work.
You're in Bondi.
You're walking down.
And no one really needs me, and everyone else is going to work. I'll do the crossword.
Did you ever do the theatre thing? Did you do a lot of that as a youngster?
Yeah, I did a bit. I did. And when you're on a good theatre show, it's pretty transcendental, really. It's just kind of amazing, and you learn a lot. And then when you're on a mediocre one, it's like torture.
No one ever says that.
Man, it's death. And also each audience responds exactly the same way every night. It's like, great, so we're getting to intermission. How many people do you think are going to come back? And then you have to go through the second half of the show with about half the audience there and half of them falling asleep.
That's the craziest thing about theatre and audiences.
Is that you can leave.
Well, that people.
That's right. We can't.
People are much more comfortable walking out of a stage show than a cinema for some reason. You know, people will sit through the worst movie they've ever seen.
Yeah, because there's there's an intermission. So you can get halfway and just be like, nah. At the movies, if you get up and walk out of a movie, you just break the magic for everyone, and everyone looks at you going, excuse me, sorry, excuse me.
I suppose that's the problem with theatre. They get you to the door, and then you go and buy a pack of cigarettes and run away forever.
I don't think it's a bad thing, you know. I think you know, the audience is king, and sometimes if you're sitting in the audience and you're going, these actors are having a lot more fun than I am. I'm going to go home. I don't hold that against audience members. I think, you know.
Now, we can talk about this because, you know, Bump has done so well, and of course there's other programs and all the other movies and stuff you've worked on has done so well. Have you ever done, and you hear about this development hell quite often, you know, you hear about development hell and, you know, how Star is Born, they've been trying to make that for 20 years again. You know, they had Beyonce ready, and then all of a sudden they had Lady Gaga. Have you ever done that on a production, or, you know, where you've gotten all the way through and it just doesn't happen?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And interestingly, like, sometimes the platform has invested, you know, up to like $300,000 in it. So you're thinking, oh, yeah, we're in.
This can't go wrong.
And then suddenly the whole, project dies. But, you know, there is a beauty about being in development too. It's a very creative part of the process, and you sort of become like a magpie. As you're living your daily life, you're sort of picking little, that would be good in that scene, or that outfit would look good on that character, or so you sort of, it's a rich time, but it is a bit of a limbo time too.
You weren't of the era where you had to choose between TV and film, I'm guessing. I mean, Paperback Hero, straight into, you know, these these series.
No, I think you're probably responsible for giving the world, Hugh Jackman. Really, I mean, like, you really helped him along in that movie, and now look at him. He's going from strength to strength.
Oh, what a lovely guy. He is a genuinely lovely guy. Yeah.
But you didn't have to, like, say, I'm going to go do film now. You could, because, you know, they talk about Clooney as someone who was kind of the first that did both, from ER to Ocean's 11.
Yeah, but that's the American industry. You can't compare it. In Australia, you just have to do everything from waitressing to TV to
awful theatre production.
to developing shows that never get up to, you just got to do it all.
And do you like doing films?
I do. I like it. I like it a lot. I just did a beautiful film, actually. It should come out eventually because of COVID. It was sort of smashed like everything. I did a great film with Noni Hazelhurst and Stephen Curry called June Again, and directed by a first-time director called JJ Winlove. It's a beautiful story, and it's a great film, but it was low budget. It was quite a short shoot, so it was quite swift. So it was a bit like television, but when you do go onto a film set and they have triple the amount of resources and triple the amount of time, it is a very different process. I like the pace of TV.
So you're saying you could power through a season of television faster than a big movie?
Well, it comes down to the amount of minutes you'll shoot in a day. So sometimes on Love My Way, we would be shooting 10 minutes of screen time in a day, whether on most feature films, well, not most, I mean, there's all different variations of budget, but on a medium Australian film, you might shoot 3 minutes of screen time a day. So, it's a big difference.
Yeah.
In the amount of coverage, the amount of takes, the amount of, resources. It's just different.
No, we know one of your former co-stars in the shape of Sam Parsonson, an actor who's worked with us on stuff over the years. And he tells me, even though he played a youngster in Love My Way, he still gets bailed up in restaurants and stuff about how much that show saved this person or changed their life. And, he was the kid.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that can happen a bit more to, the leads.
Yeah, I don't know. I have some sort of weird way of blocking that sort of stuff out. I still wander down the street and talk to myself out loud and pretend that I'm invisible, or feel invisible, which is great. But there is a sort of visibility. He's great, Sam. I have to say, I remember Sam every time I hang out my washing, because we were doing a scene together and we were hanging out the washing and I was hanging out the jeans, just folding them over the line, like dropping them over. He's like, is that how you hang out your jeans? He was like about 17 years old or something. I was like, yes, why? He said, that's not how you do it. You got to get the waistband and you have the jeans open, you click. I was like, oh my goodness, I've been schooled by a 17-year-old boy. So I thank him for that. My jeans dry a lot quicker.
Yeah, that's the thespian boarding school kid coming out of him.
Yeah.
You've said a lot in interviews after Bump about how, and we spoke about it earlier, is about the half an hour and, how you can trim the fat and how you can get a drama or, a comedy drama or, any kind of program. You can get that up now with streaming and people are keen for it. Is that something you've been waiting for in film and TV?
Look, I think I was sort of starting to despair because it didn't look like the landscape was going to change. It always looked like half hour was going to be the sort of the cheaper show and the comedy skit show. And, in terms of free-to-air scheduling, for some reason, it just didn't ever fit into their schedules. It always had to be hours. And so I'd sort of given it up. And Kelsey, who's totally fresh to our industry, she'd never had a script produced before. And it was her passion to go for half hours. So we did go into the Stan meeting saying it was going to be hours, just to sort of get them on the hook. And, to their credit, they were fantastic collaborators and terrific to work with. When we did fess up and go, we actually think this would be a half hour. We just had this brilliant idea. What do you reckon about half hours?
We were just saying on the way here.
Yeah.
And they were like, great, yep, we're on. So, so thanks to Kelsey, we really gave that a red hot go.
And are you feeling it in the air? There's going to be an Australian TV kind of renaissance as well. Outside with all these streaming, all these platforms are setting up shop?
Well, yeah, it's pretty exciting. I mean, to date, a lot of the internationals, because Stan is an Australian streamer. A lot of people don't know that. They think it's international. But a lot of the internationals aren't investing as much in our stories. So I'm really hoping they see the success of Bump and they see that, it is a way into our marketplace. Like people do want to see themselves and their accents and their landscapes and their stories being told. And it's, rather than just inheriting an international library.
Yeah, it feels like there was a time, where I guess reality TV was a big changer when free-to-air networks were able to say, this is Australian-made content, I'm going to put 20 drunk bogans in a house on the Gold Coast. And this is, that's in their mind. They met that quota that would have once gone to Country Practice or Stingers.
Yeah, that whole drama system and the point system is quite complicated. I think you get more points for drama, so it's not exactly apples for apples. But yeah, there was an element of that for sure. Yeah. But one of the interesting things, I think it was Tony Ayres said in an interview, why do we have a problem with, the D word, diversity on camera, where, you look at MasterChef and it's United Nations. Yeah. And he had a great point. And then there was a terrific article, I can't remember who wrote it, but they said, they want all these different faces on camera and on screen, but none of us are, excuse the F word, none of us are fuckable. No one wants to have sex with us. We're just we're the best friend, or whether this, that, and the other thing. So that was another layer to representation, is like, okay, and you're also, people are falling in love with you. And so that was another great article.
But, you look at the success of some of the great kind of TV institutions, Heartbreak High, and then, of course, even in America, you start looking at the big, sellable, bankable kind of shows, and they were World Wrestling, and the Fast and the Furious, and these things were like almost every single character was from a different kind of part of the world, and it just sells. It does work.
It does work. Yeah, there was a great investigation into that earlier this year. There was a great article about America and how, what was it? Was it the Black Panther? Or no, what was it called? That feature film with full black cast. It was a Marvel or something.
Yeah, Black Panther.
It was called Black Panther. Okay. There's so many examples to cite, but it was interesting. One of the things they were still not addressing was Latinos. Yeah. And they're 30% of the American population, but they were actually represented as like 5% in representation. Yeah. So I think we may have even beaten the Americans at their own game.
A lot of the movies, they were always the bad guys too.
It's the same four actors. There's Hector, the guy with the Southern Californian gangster with the shaved head and the moustache. We've all seen those 5 or 6 actors that get the start.
But there's been a lot of press recently, really, with all this COVID that's happening, that the rise of streaming is having a knock-on effect with movies, how people aren't able to go to the movies anymore. Do you think they'll always be around? Like, we'll always have a bookshop where you can go and buy a hardcover book. Do you think that movies they're so entrenched in the storytelling experience of movies that they'll just always be around?
I think so. I mean, I think there was big furor when something called the television was invented. They're like, it's going to be the end of radio. Yeah. I think there's room for everything. And, some stories really need to be told in a feature film format. They really suit it. Yeah. And certainly there's a lot of directors out there who still believe that until you've made your own feature film, you're not a director.
Yeah. It's not a movie, it's a film.
Yeah. A film.
Yeah. I feel like the awards and there's people that grow up viewing, screen that way. And don't think anything else when they're going through, university or they're going through film school. They don't ever think, I'm going to TV, I'm going to make, I guess it is similar to books in a way where people have got that one book in them.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
Every drama teacher.
Yeah.
Wait till I get out of this place, you little bastards. I'm going to write my book and I'm going to get out of here, or, I'm finally going to get that screenplay out.
Every bloke living above a pub, ever. Everyone you've ever met that's down there in the beer garden, he's got a good book in it. He's probably already written it. Well, anyway, thank you for joining us today. This has been a really interesting conversation because obviously Batuta Advocate work in the online space and in traditional print newspapers. We didn't actually know too much about everything that goes on behind the scenes, especially in this brave new world. But for those listeners sitting on the tractor, your wife has got Stan, and it is on the TV. So after Landline, sit down, pour yourself a lemonade, and check out Bump. Because
you can listen to Radio National at the same time. You can do 2 things at once.
Provided you live in a place with, the level of internet that you do need to watch a TV show.
Yeah. You probably won't be able to pull this off in Sky Muster, but if you've got the copper wire, you should be all right. So you'll make up one of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Australians that have enjoyed this TV show, and we're all excited for a second season. So thank you for joining us, Claudia.
Thank you.